Welcome to True Crime Storytime. The channel explores real cases, revealing the mystery behind the crimes through each fascinating and dramatic story. In May 2023, in a quiet residential area in Malaga, Spain, an emergency call brought the police quickly to the scene. In a small apartment, they discovered the body of Paula, a young woman with many fatal stab wounds on her body. The house became a scene of grief, blood everywhere. The main suspect was the victim's boyfriend, Marco, who fled immediately after the incident. After several hours of searching, the police arrested Marco at a nearby cafe. He sat there calmly as if nothing had happened, even though just a few hours earlier, the apartment he shared with Paula had become the scene of a murder. Marco was arrested, and the case quickly attracted the attention not only of the locals, but also of the whole of Spain. But what shocked everyone the most was Marco's surprising confession during interrogation. He said that in 2014, he had murdered another woman, Sabora Gagan, who had been reported missing by her family and had never been found. This confession took the police back 9 years, back to the mysterious disappearance of Sabora. With Marco's testimony, the police searched the apartment where he and Sabora had shared. After breaking down the wall in the bedroom, they found a sealed wooden box. Inside the box were plastic bags containing Sabora's remains, carefully buried with lime and her personal belongings. The discovery not only confirmed Sabora's tragic fate, but also revealed Marco's crime spree that spanned nearly a decade. 2 cases, 2 women with tragic fates, destroyed by a violent and calculating man. This story not only exposes cruel acts, but also serves as a warning about toxic relationships and the dangers they can cause. Marco's case has not only shocked the public, but also raises the question, how many signs were overlooked before these tragedies occurred? Sabora Gagan was a vibrant young woman, born on September 14, 1991, in Tirana, Albania. She grew up in a normal family, but after her parents' divorce, her mother, Elisabetta, took her children to Italy to build a new life. In Rome, Sabora quickly adapted to her new environment. She is loved by her friends for her dynamism, humor, and always being the center of attention at meetings. Since childhood, Sabora dreamed of becoming a teacher because she loved children. However, her family faced financial difficulties, forcing her to start working at an early age. With her beautiful appearance and slim figure, Sabora participated in local beauty pageants and even won a title in a regional contest. Modeling opportunities came her way, but her biggest dream was still to have a stable, happy life with her family. At the age of 18, Sabora's life changed when she met Marco, a 31-year-old chef at the cafe where she worked. Marco was a confident and charming man who Sabora was quickly attracted to. Initially, he appeared to be a trustworthy man, skillful in hiding his complicated past. Marco had a criminal record related to violence and drug addiction, but he kept it a secret. To Sabora, Marco seemed to be the one who could give her the sense of security and love she had always been looking for. A year into their relationship, Marco convinced Sabora to leave Italy for Spain with the promise of a better future. Despite her mother's objections, Sabora decided to follow Marco, believing that this would be the turning point to start a new life. In Spain, they lived in a small apartment in Malaga. At first, everything seemed stable. Sabora worked as a waitress in a restaurant, and Marco as a chef in a pizza parlor. However, the conflicts gradually became clear when Marco started losing his job repeatedly. He blamed others for his failures and became increasingly jealous and aggressive. Every time Elisabetta visited, she noticed the tension in her daughter's relationship. Sabora, who had been a cheerful and energetic girl, now became withdrawn and lacking in self-confidence. Although her mother repeatedly advised Sabora to leave Marco, she tried to protect him, blaming the situation and hoping that things would change. The truth was, Marco not only controlled every aspect of Sabora's life, but also threatened her when she wanted to leave him. Every time Sabora tried to get out of the relationship, Marco tried to pull her back with promises or threats. However, in 2014, Sabora mustered up the courage to move out of the shared apartment and told her mother that she would not be getting back together with Marco. But that hope was short-lived. In July 2014, Sabora suddenly disappeared, leaving her family in a state of panic and suspicion. The last person to see her was none other than Marco, and that marked the beginning of a mysterious case that would last for nearly a decade. In July 2014, Sabora Gagan mysteriously disappeared, leaving her family and friends in a state of confusion. Before her disappearance, Sabora had moved out of the shared apartment with her boyfriend Marco and informed her mother that she had finally ended her relationship with him. She described feeling like a butterfly emerging from its cocoon, full of hope for a new life. However, just a few weeks later, she suddenly disappeared. The last known date for Sabora was July 7th, 2014. According to Marco, they had a heated argument at the apartment before she left. He claimed that she took a few suitcases and left, but this contradicts what was later found. Most of her personal belongings, including her clothes and identification, were still in the apartment. Sabora's family and friends did not receive any calls or messages from her after that date, which was completely out of character for her. Sabora's mother, Elisabetta, clearly sensed that something was wrong. She contacted Marco several times to ask about her daughter's whereabouts, but received only inconsistent and unconvincing answers. Marco tried to appear like a caring man. He even went to Italy to see Elisabetta, trying to show his concern for Sabora's disappearance. However, his testimony was full of contradictions. He initially said that a security guard in the apartment complex saw Sabora leave with 2 suitcases. Later, he claimed that she left without taking anything. Even more suspicious, Marco did not report Sabora's disappearance to the police. Instead, he printed and distributed flyers around the neighborhood, trying to portray himself as a worried boyfriend. But to Sabora's family, Marco's actions only made them more suspicious. Elisabetta recalled that in the final months before her disappearance, Sabora tried to escape from Marco, but was always pulled back by him. In 2013, she returned to Italy to stay away from him, even telling her mother that she saw no future in the relationship. However, Marco followed her to Italy, knelt down, and begged, promising to change. Sabora, exhausted by the endless conflicts, finally agreed to return to him. Before her disappearance, Sabora also told her mother that if she decided to leave Marco again, she would have to disappear completely to avoid his harassment. These words made it impossible for the family to rule out the possibility that Marco was involved in her disappearance. The family quickly reported Sabora's disappearance to the Spanish police. However, the initial investigation did not yield positive results. Marco, the last person to see Sabora, kept changing his story and did not provide any useful information. He also did not cooperate in the search. The police found no trace of Sabora at their old apartment, and all leads seemed to have run out. Sabora's family tried to pressure the police to expand the investigation. They contacted the press and missing persons organizations, hoping to attract public attention. Sabora's photo and appeals for help began to appear in the Italian and Spanish media. However, no meaningful information was received. Meanwhile, Marco seemed to return to a normal life. He changed his appearance by shaving his head and growing a beard, lived a more private life, but still regularly went to the gym and joined a shooting club. Despite his outward appearance as a mild-mannered man, Marco's subsequent relationships continued to end with complaints from his partners about his aggressive behavior. Sabora's family, especially Elisabetta, never gave up on finding the truth. She repeatedly urged the police to reinvestigate the case, convinced that Marco was the key to solving the mystery. But for years, the case remained unsolved, and the truth about Sabora's fate remained a big question. In May 2023, Spanish police received an emergency call from the neighborhood where Marco and his new girlfriend, Paula, lived. The call came from a neighbor who heard loud screams coming from their apartment. When police arrived at the scene, Marco had left the apartment, leaving Paula's body with multiple fatal stab wounds. Victor Molina, the landlord and Paula's employer, attempted to stop Marco before he could flee. However, Marco acted quickly, calmly, but mysteriously leaving the scene. This prompted Victor to immediately call the police, while providing important details to aid the investigation. Just a few hours later, Marco was arrested at a nearby cafe. He appeared calm and did not resist when handcuffed by the police. However, Paula's case was only the beginning of a series of mysteries that were revealed, leading to the reinvestigation of Sabora Gagan's disappearance from 9 years ago. While being questioned about Paula's death, Marco made a shocking confession. He said that in 2014, during an argument with Sabora, he accidentally killed her. According to his initial statement, Marco claimed that in a fit of rage, he killed Sabora and hid her body in a secret space behind a wall in their old apartment. Marco was willing to cooperate, even offering to lead the police to where Sabora's body was hidden. However, the police remained cautious because he kept changing his story and had a history of providing conflicting information. Nevertheless, Marco's confession turned the tide in Sabora's disappearance case. With Marco's statement, the police began searching the old apartment where he and Sabora lived in 2014. One strange thing was that the apartment's floor plan did not match the real thing. A large gap, noted on the plan, had been covered by construction. This discrepancy caught the attention of investigators. On June 6, 2023, after receiving a search warrant, the police broke into the secret space behind a wall in a neighboring apartment. There, they discovered a large wooden box containing lime and several plastic bags. Inside, they found a decomposed body along with a bloody knife and personal items, including a bouquet of wilted flowers and belongings that the family confirmed belonged to Sabora. Although the body was severely decomposed, several tattoos on the body matched the description of Sabora in the missing persons report. Police quickly took a DNA sample from Sabora's mother, Elisabetta, to compare with samples found at the scene. On June 10, 2023, DNA results confirmed that the body belonged to Sabora Gagan, ending a 9-year mystery about her fate. Sabora's mother, despite having a premonition of something bad, was still shocked to learn that her daughter had indeed been murdered and her body hidden for years. This contradicts Marco's initial statement that the death was an accident. The police also discovered that Marco had tried to use lime to decompose the body faster, but failed. This action shows how calculated and cold he was in covering up his crime. With Sabora's body found, Elisabetta and her family finally have answers to her mysterious disappearance. However, the truth also brings unending pain. For 9 years, Elisabetta has been calling for a reinvestigation of the case, and her efforts have finally paid off. With new evidence, Sabora's case is officially reopened, and Marco faces more serious charges. Meanwhile, her family prepares to hold a funeral, lay Sabora to rest, and close a painful but indelible chapter in their lives. After Marco is arrested and confesses to Sabora Gagan's death, the police immediately expand their investigation to check the veracity of his testimony. Investigators find that Marco has been constantly changing his story. His initial confession that he accidentally killed Sabora in a fit of rage quickly became unconvincing when police discovered physical evidence at the scene. The two cases involving Marco were not just isolated tragedies, but also revealed a pattern of repeated violent behavior, stemming from his possessiveness, control, and jealousy. Both victims, Sabora Gagan and Paula, were once vibrant, hopeful women who had become trapped in toxic relationships with Marco. Marco's motives for the crimes stemmed from his fear of losing control, coupled with an uncontrollable aggressive temperament. According to testimony from friends, family, and colleagues, Marco was described as a charming man with an aggressive and controlling nature. In both his relationships with Sabora and Paula, he showed signs of being an abuser. Marco constantly monitored his girlfriend's relationships and actions. With Sabora, he did not accept that she wanted to leave. With Paula, he suspected her of having a relationship with a colleague, to the point of damaging property at work. Marco repeatedly accused the victims of betrayal, despite having no evidence. This led to heated arguments and escalated into violence. Marco's aggressive behavior did not stop at words, but turned into actions. It culminated in the attack and murder of 2 victims. Marco always blamed the situation or other people for his behavior. After killing Sabora, he made up a story about the Albanian mafia to justify his actions. Marco was not initially considered a prime suspect because he was good at covering up the crime. However, the following factors gradually pointed to his involvement. Marco kept giving different versions of what happened to Sabora. He said she left on her own, then mentioned the Albanian mafia. When the apartment where they lived was searched, investigators found wooden boxes, lime, and blood traces leading to Sabora's body. After Sabora disappeared, Marco changed his appearance, avoiding contact with people who knew her. He did not even report her disappearance to the police. Paula's death immediately made Marco the prime suspect. Factors pointing to his guilt include: Paula was found dead in the apartment she and Marco shared. The murder weapon was a knife belonging to Marco. Paula's landlord and co-worker heard her screams before she was killed, and Marco himself opened the door in an abnormal state. After his arrest, Marco admitted to killing Paula and confessed to killing Sabora in the past. The families of the victims, especially Sabora's mother, Elisabetta, played an important role in pushing forward the investigation. For 9 years, Elisabetta kept asking the police to reopen her daughter's case. Her persistence, along with pressure from the community, forced the authorities to act. In Paula's case, the intervention of the landlord and co-workers helped to discover the body in time, preventing Marco from escaping further. Thanks to the cooperation between the community and the police, Marco was arrested within hours of the crime. Marco faced 2 major cases: the murder of Paula and the murder of Sabora. Marco was charged with murder with aggravated gender-based violence. Evidence included the murder weapon, traces at the scene, and witnesses who heard arguing before the murder. He claimed he acted in self-defense during a heated argument, but evidence from the scene, including wounds to Paula's back, disproved this claim. Marco was denied bail and must await trial in prison. Marco was charged with murder and concealment of a body. The fact that the body was hidden in a wall suggested a deliberate attempt to avoid detection. Marco changed his story several times, even later claiming that the Albanian mafia had killed Sabora and forced him to conceal the body. However, police found no evidence to support this claim. DNA, the murder weapon, and witness testimony pointed to Marco as the sole perpetrator. Marco's trial began in early 2024, with Paula's murder at the center. Prosecutors brought serious charges of premeditated murder and gender-based violence. Marco, who admitted to the murder early in the case, repeatedly changed his story and offered various excuses. The prosecutor argued that Marco had been violent toward Paula for a long time, and that her murder was the culmination of a toxic relationship. The injuries to Paula's body, including multiple stab wounds to the back, proved that it was not self-defense, as Marco claimed. Neighbors and witnesses, including Victor and Victoria, testified about heated arguments and Marco's control over Paula. At the end of the trial, Marco was sentenced to life in prison without parole for murder and gender-based violence. Paula's family and justice advocates expressed satisfaction with the sentence, but also stressed that Paula's death could have been prevented if she had received timely support. Alongside Paula's trial, Sabora Gagan's case was reinvestigated 9 years after her disappearance. Marco admitted to hiding Sabora's body and providing information that led to her body being found in the wall of her old apartment. However, he changed his story several times, even accusing the Albanian mafia of being the culprit. In July 2024, after lengthy trials, Marco was sentenced to life in prison without parole for Sabora's murder. The court emphasized that Marco's actions were not just a single crime, but demonstrated a pattern of repeated violence. Paula's mother expressed gratitude to those who helped bring Marco to justice. However, she could not hide the pain of losing her daughter. Nothing can bring Paula back, but at least we know that the person who destroyed her life will never have the chance to hurt anyone else. Sabora's mother, Elisabetta, has waited 9 years to learn the truth about her daughter. "I have lived with the pain of not knowing what happened to her," she said. "Now, I just want her to rest in peace." The family held a formal funeral for Sabora in Italy, where friends and relatives could finally say goodbye. Marco's 2 life sentences are the end of 2 tragic cases. The stories of Paula and Sabora are not only a warning about the dangers of toxic relationships, but also highlight the importance of early detection and intervention in domestic violence. In addition, the case has raised public awareness of gender-based violence and the need to support victims. Human rights organizations in Spain and Italy have used the case of Paula and Sabora as a case study to advocate for policies to protect women. The story of Paula and Sabora is both painful and instructive. It reminds people of the dangers of potential abusers in society and encourages solidarity and support to protect vulnerable people. Their deaths are not in vain. They have contributed to positive changes in the way the community views and responds to domestic violence. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated. Your support means the world to us.